we realize that this is the wheels within the wheels of Ezekiel, right? Yeah, we're starting to put all these prophecies together. Okay, now we've been studying. We understand Daniel 11 verse 40 to 45. That has been unraveled many years ago, and to know what that means. But the beginning of Daniel 11, we thought that was just almost like it was a historical treatise. It was just like a story of history, and we didn't know how it actually fits in the end time. How does that all fit? But now, only within the last couple of months, that has been deciphered as to what it actually means, because now we realize that it fits in the details of the missing parts in Daniel 11 verse 40 to 45. Okay, all right, so now we're going to go to where we left off last time. Where were we? Okay, this is where we were. All right, we were trying to figure out about the parallel kingdoms, right? Remember, there was the wars that happened after Alexander died, and then it eventually boiled down to two kingdoms, right? The parallel kingdoms. And we realized that there is a history of what is actually happening in America, all right? Because this is our timeline here. This is 1989, that's the time of the end. 9/11, midnight cry, Sunday law, and national Sunday law, and the universal Sunday law. All right, this is the timelines. I'm just going to go over these all the time, over and over again. Those are the timelines that we eventually come to realize the waymarks of the prophecies. All right, and then this is when America will, probation for America basically starts closing here, and it has to give up its power because it is being hit by the east wind, which is the ass of Balaam, right? Yeah, and it has to give up its power to the United Nations. So that the United Nations starts becoming a more prominent power here, and America starts going down here, right? Eventually, at the Sunday law, America no longer can handle what Islam is doing, and eventually has to give up all the power to the world power to United Nations. Okay, all right. And the papacy will rule, the eighth beast will rule with the seventh beast for 1 hour, meaning a short period of time. And then it's going to be the papacy that rules. The eighth kingdom will be. That's Revelation 17. Okay, so the parallel kingdoms, we find out it's happening right here, even in America. The parallel kingdoms, right? And the king will rule. The king that was elected here will become the ruler of this parallel kingdom. Okay, all right? All right. And we know that there's two walls. This is the wall of marriage, and that when that wall becomes corrupted, because the corrupted marriage is the marriage between the church and state. So when the church starts asking the state to have a Sunday law, the Sunday laws will start here, but the Sunday law will not become the Sunday law where the Sabbath will be outlawed. The Sabbath will be outlawed right here. That is the Sunday law. So first, there's going to be a ruling that you are not allowed to work on Sunday. But then here is when you are not allowed to even go to church on Sabbath, on Saturday. So we know that's coming up. In the future, that is what is going to happen to this country. All right? And the reason why it's being made into laws is because Islam is attacking. Islam has been attacked at 9/11, and Islam will attack again at Midnight Cry, and Islam is going to attack again at Sunday Law, right? We studied that from the story of Balaam, right? Story of Balaam. Okay. But now I'm adding a little mixture, adding a little line. So this is the line of Balaam. All right, we have to add the line of Revelation 9. Revelation 9 describes the first and the second woe. All right, the first and because this is the third woe starts here. The third woe of Revelation 11 starts at 9/11. But the third woe is actually a combination of the first and the second woe. Right? So if you want to know what the third woe of Revelation 11 that starts at 9/11, that's Islam. Because the first and the second woe is Islam, and that's in the first woe, and the second woe is basically here. All right, you go to Revelation 9. Maybe you can, I'm not going to, but you can look it up in Revelation 9. Revelation 9 verse 5. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. All right, 5 months. 5 months is how many prophetic days? 150 days. So 150 days is 150 years, right? So they're going to torment. So who is it they that they're going to torment who? This is Islam tormenting Rome for 150 years, all right? That's from the year, 1299 to 1449, okay? This is pioneer understanding. This is what the Millerites understood, okay? From 1299 to 1449, Islam was tormenting. They did not kill the Roman, they did not conquer Rome, but they tormented Rome, okay? So like Balaam was restraining. Islam right now is not destroying the king of the north or Rome or anything. They're just tormenting, right? Isn't Islam just tormenting right now? Yes. Yeah. So when you put that into a timeline, it's up until the midnight, right? Here, the four winds are let loose, and that's the four winds. Our pioneers understood that the four winds that was let loose were the sultans of Baghdad, Damascus, Aleppo, and Iconium. So Islam is divided into four groups. Right now, do you see that Islam is unified, or there's multiple parts of Islam all over the world? Multiple. All right? There's multiple factions. They're all fighting each other. But what's going to happen at midnight? They're all going to come together under Muhammad II. Right? At midnight, Muhammad II, he woke up one midnight and he decided, I'm going to attack Constantinople, which is the capital of Turkey. Right? And the only way I can do that and destroy that wall is if I get somebody to build me a cannon. So I'm gonna need a cannon to blow down the wall of Constantinople. And he brought that wall down at right here, which lines up right at midnight cry with when America also is hit by Islam. So at midnight, Islam is going to start joining forces together. Now we're living right here. Islam is still broken up into factions, but pretty soon Islam is going to start joining up together and will hire a bomb maker, so that bomb will be used to blow down the wall right at midnight cry. Okay? All right. Wow. So that's where we are. If we study what the pioneers understood and study what the story of Balaam, you put that line upon this line, you know what's coming up, is what Islam is going to do next. All right? It's going to be pretty scary. And the economy is going to collapse right here. Okay? That's Balaam's foot is crushed by the ass hitting it on a wall. That's the wall right there. Okay? All right.
Three woes too.
Yeah, there's three woes. Yeah, one woe, second woe, and the third woe is a repetition. Repetition right on top of there. The third woe starts right here. and it keeps going, okay? All right. We're going to study this in relation to the king of the north and the king of the south. But I'm putting this in the beginning because we should not forget what the role of Islam is going forward here. Islam is going to attack, and it's going to be big time with a new technology that's unstable, that hasn't been used before. We don't know what it is, but it's going to cripple the United States economy right here. Okay? All right. Okay. With that, we realize that we have to, all this understanding, most of it comes from studying the pioneer writings from Uriah Smith's Daniel and the Revelation, right? Okay. So I have to put this into this study because Ellen White endorsed Uriah Smith. There's not very many books that Ellen White actually endorsed, but Uriah Smith's Daniel and the Revelation was endorsed, right? Daniel and the Revelation, together with Great Controversy, Patriarch, Prophet, Desired Ages, should now go to the world, right? Again, I know of no other book that can take the place of this one, Daniel and Revelation. It is God's helping hand, right? Very important. We have to be able to, you read that book and take out the important historical events there, and you're gonna be starting to be able to put it onto the timelines, right? The Lord has shown me. Anytime Ellen White says that, what? She actually saw it in a vision. The Lord has shown me that this book will do a good work in enlightening those who become interested in the truth for this time. Those who embrace the truth now, who have not shared in the experience of those who have entered the work in the early history of the message, should study the instruction given in Daniel and the Revelation, becoming familiar with the truth it presents. This is the version of Daniel and Revelation before Uriah Smith died. He died in 1904. Unfortunately, there's multiple versions after he died, right? Multiple. And when you download Daniel and Revelation, make sure you know what version you're downloading, because you don't want to download the version that's done after 1904, after he died, because it has been butchered. Multiple paragraphs, chunks of paragraphs have been removed out of it. Make sure you find the one that's before 1904. Oh, okay, all right. I doubt it's going to be before 1904, though. That's going to be an expensive book. All right, okay. Anyway, so when we go forward here, I'm going to use, Bible, Spirit of Prophecy, and also a lot of Daniel and Revelation, because the pioneer understanding rests heavily on the writings of Uriah Smith in Daniel and the Revelation. All right, so we're going to continue now. I put this graphic here just because we're going to make sure we know the north controls Babylon, and the south controls Egypt. All right, okay. Daniel 11 verse 6. And in the end of years they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north. Wait a minute, you gotta stop. What did we study last week? In verse 3, Alexander the Great. Okay, you open your Bibles, and then just go to Daniel 11 verse 3, right? Alexander the Great rise, and then he fell. Okay, that's verse 3. All right, and then verse 4 and 5 is the wars of his successors. It's called the wars of the Diadochi. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. The wars of the Diadochi means the wars of the successors. His kingdom was divided into 24 different satrapies, which eventually was fighting each other, and they eventually consolidated down to 4 big kingdoms, right? It was the Lysimachus, Cassander, Ptolemy, and Seleucus, right? Right. And eventually they fought again, and then it was whittled down to 2 parallel kingdoms, right? The north was Seleucid, and the south was Ptolemy. All right, that's the summary of verse 4 and 5. Right, so basically, from Alexander the Great, he fell, and then the biggest 4 generals eventually prevailed, and then from there it got whittled down to just 2, right? The Seleucids and the Ptolemies. All right. Okay. So now we're going forward. Okay. So we caught up now. All right. And in the end of years, what does that mean? After a long period of time, right? They shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. But she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, but he shall be given up, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times. Oh boy. What does that mean? Okay. This is why you can go look up Uriah Smith here. Uriah Smith, 1890. I made sure I got the 1897 version. All right. There were frequent wars between the king of Egypt and Syria. All right. Egypt is south, Syria is the north, the Seleucids. Especially was this the case of Ptolemy Philadelphus, the second king of Egypt, and Antiochus Theos, the third king of Syria. They at length agreed to make peace upon condition that Antiochus Theos should put away his former wife, Laodice. Okay, so the king of the north, they said, okay, these guys have been fighting. North and south have been fighting, and eventually they said, okay, well, let's make a peace treaty. But this peace treaty is the king of the south, all right, he's going to give up his daughter to marry the king of the north, Antiochus Theos, all right? So they make a peace treaty, and the sign of that peace treaty is Berenice, the daughter of the king of the south, all right? But first, Antiochus Theos, you have to divorce your wife, Laodice. So the wife was divorced, and she went to Ephesus, right? So then Berenice went up and brought an immense dowry. Ptolemy accordingly brought his daughter to Antiochus, bestowing with her an immense dowry. So she brought a lot of treasures up to the north to marry him, and he had to divorce his wife, Laodice. Right? Okay, you got that so far? Because they've been fighting, and they finally said, okay, we're done fighting, let's just make a peace treaty. All right? Yeah. Yeah, but you got to divorce your wife. We're gonna have a peace treaty. I'm gonna give my daughter, but you got to give up your wife. All right? Okay. That's the Second Syrian War. This is the Second Syrian War. All right, just for a refresher, what is the Second Syrian War? Okay, remember we did this. This is the wars of the Diadochi, when from 24 it went down to 2. All right. Now those 2, north and south, will start fighting each other, and they have 6 wars. All right. The 6 wars, this is called the Syrian War. All right. The first one, the south won. Antiochus the first against Ptolemy the second. All right. In the second war, is called the War of Kos. I have the years here. It was Antiochus II against Ptolemy II, and they ended up in the Berenice Treaty. Right? So this is the one, the Second Syrian War. So during a time of years, they were fighting, and in the first war, the South won, and then they fought again, but then this one ended up in a peace treaty, which is the Berenice Treaty. Okay, all right. So you got this now. All right. You think that this is, why are we studying this? Is this important for us to study? I'm telling you, this is important. Okay. This is gonna be important. Okay. This is important. All right. Oh, okay. And did I go forward or I go backwards? Okay. Did I go? No, I think I went forward. Okay. But but she shall not retain the power of the arm, right? But she shall not retain the power of the arm. That is her interest and power with Antiochus. So she cannot continue to be the wife of Antiochus. And so it proved, for some time shortly after, in a fit of love, Antiochus brought back his former wife Laodice and her children to court again, right? Then says the prophecy, neither shall he, Antiochus, stand nor his arm or seed. Laodice, being restored to favor and power, feared lest in the fickleness of his temper, Antiochus should again disgrace her and recall Berenice, and conceiving that nothing short of his death would be an effectual safeguard against such a contingency, she caused him to be poisoned shortly after. Neither did his seed by Berenice succeed in the kingdom, for Laodice so managed affairs as to secure the throne for her eldest son, Seleucus Callinicus. All right. So what did Laodice say? Okay, I'm going to come back, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to kill you, my ex-husband, so that our son can be king. All right. So that's Antiochus Theos, right? He's the one that had to give up Laodice, and that's their son. Laodice wants this son to become king. So what did Laodice do? He had Antiochus Theos killed, poisoned. All right. Okay. All right.
So they named their king Seleucus or Antiochus.
Right. Seleucus is for Seleucus Nicator, who is the initial Seleucus. And the kingdom become the Seleucids. But their capital city is Antioch. So their kings also either called Seleucus or Antiochus. Mm-hmm. Okay. But she, Berenice, shall be given up, right? But she, where is it? She shall be, but he, she shall be given up right there. But she, Berenice, shall be given up. Laodice, not content with poisoning her husband, Antiochus, caused Berenice to be murdered. And they that brought her, her Egyptian women and attendants, all her entourage was killed. In endeavoring to defend her were many of them slain with her. And he that begat her, margin, whom she brought forth, that is her son, was murdered at the same time by order of Laodice. So Berenice, Berenice's son, and all the entourage was killed. And he that strengthened her in these times, her husband Antiochus, as Jerome supposes, or those who took her part and defended her. But such wickedness could not long remain unpunished, as the prophecy further predicts and further history proves. So what happened to Berenice? Was killed by Laodice. All right. Okay. You know, when we studied this, 3 or 4 years ago, we go, okay, that's good. That's nice history. But what does this mean? Oh, I don't know.
2014, actually.
We studied this in 2014? Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah.
But Laodice set up a government in Ephesus.
That's right. Yeah. Right. They brought her back.
So he has still the leadership of his own.
Yeah. Laodice came back. All right. Yeah. And we made notes for this, so everybody has notes. Yeah. All right. Anyway, now verse 7. But out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail. All right. So now what? And out of her branch of her roots. Okay. What does that mean? Somebody who's related to her. Somebody who's related to her is going to come and defend her and with an army and take revenge against whoever killed her. Right. This, according to Bishop Newton, this is still from Daniel and Revelation. This, according to Bishop Newton, is Jerome's account. Appian informs us that Laodice, having killed Antiochus, Laodice killed her ex-husband. And after him, both Berenice and her child Ptolemy, the son of Philadelphus, to revenge those murders, invaded Syria, slew Laodice, and proceeded as far as Babylon. From Polybius, which is a Greek historian, we learn that Ptolemy, surnamed Euergetes, being greatly incensed at the cruel treatment of his sister Berenice, marched with an army into Syria and took the city of Seleucia, which was kept for some years afterward by garrisons of the king of Egypt. This did he enter into the fortress of the king of the north. And she shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north. In other words, he went all the way to the capital, right? He did not just kind of attack from, the neighboring areas, just the areas of Syria. No, he went all the way into Antioch. He went all the way into the fortress. Paulinus affirms that Ptolemy made himself master of all the country from Mount Tarsus as far as to India, without war or battle. In other words, he went all the way into the fortress without any resistance. This is very, very important. Remember, when the king of the south defeats the king of the north, he goes all the way into the fortress, and there was no resistance by the king of the north, right? And he did this as a revenge. He did this in revenge for the breaking of a treaty, right? They had a peace treaty together, and the king of the south and the king of the north broke it, right? So what happens is now the king of the south makes a revenge. He takes that breaking of that treaty as a pretext, okay? I keep saying this. There's a pretext, all right? You get this? Okay. Wow, this is amazing. Okay, so this is Ptolemy Euergetes, all right? Ptolemy Euergetes. All right, Ptolemy Euergetes. Okay. And this is called the Third Syrian War. This is the Third Syrian War. So the modern historians kind of call these wars, we didn't have a name for these wars before, but now they call it the Third Syrian War, okay? And just to remind you that the Third Syrian War is from 246 to 241. So he first entered into what? In 246, right? Yeah. He entered in 246. That's when he first started to enter into the fortress, all right? Okay. Remember this date, 246. It's important. All right. So this is the Third Syrian War, right? And this is Seleucus and Ptolemy. South won again because South took revenge against Berenice, right? And he went all the way into there. It's 246, right? Yeah, the Wall of Andres, the Third Syrian War. Seleucus II, yeah, is Seleucus II. That's right, the son of Laodice. That's right, the son of Laodice. Right, the brother of Berenice. Ptolemy III is the brother of Berenice. Yeah, it's the brother. Okay, these things we had no clue when we studied this 3 years ago. Nobody had any clue as to what this all meant. Nobody. Not any theologians in this whole world knew what this meant until now. This is just incredible. I mean, I just can't tell you how amazing this is now being opened up. And shall also carry captives into Egypt their God. So after he went and conquered without resistance into the king of the north area, he brought back what? He carried captives into Egypt their gods with their princes and with their precious vessels of silver and gold, and he shall continue more the years than the king of the south. So he take back all the treasures, maybe the dowry that Berenice brought up there, take that all back. Okay, right? But hearing that a sedition was raised in Egypt, okay, he's all the way into the king of the north, but then he says, there's some sedition going back in Egypt. So what happens? He now has to go back. Okay, a sedition was being raised in Egypt, requiring his return home. He plundered the kingdom of Seleucus, took 40,000 talents of silver and precious vessels, and 2,500 images of the gods. Among these were the images that Cambyses, who's Cambyses, had formerly taken from Egypt and carried into Persia. Wait a minute. Who's Cambyses? Who's Cambyses again?
That was the false Smyrdes?
That's the brother of Smyrdes. Okay, Cambyses is the son of Cyrus. When Cyrus died, Cambyses became king. All right? He is like Clinton. Sometimes I say, what has anything to do with Clinton? But anyway, Cambyses, he went into Egypt and he plundered Egypt and he brought back a lot of the Egyptian gods and he took a lot of the art treasures he took back to the north, to Syria. All right? Okay, when he was down in Egypt, he had his brother killed. His brother was Smyrdes. When there was nobody there, then there's an imposter by the name, and he claimed, I'm Smyrdes. I'm the lawful king here. But it turns out he's an imposter. So he is the false Smyrdes. False Smyrdes. So eventually, when Darius became king, Darius killed the false Smyrdes. So Darius became the third king. So there's the king. There was, after Cyrus was Cambyses, false Smyrdes, and then Darius. Who's after Darius? The richest of them all, right? Xerxes. Right. So this is Cambyses. They brought back Cambyses. So the king of the south take back all the treasures that Cambyses had taken. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Among these were the images that Cambyses had formerly taken from Egypt and carried into Persia. The Egyptians, being wholly given to idolatry, bestowed upon Ptolemy the title of Euergetes, or the benefactor. Now, you think this is not crucial? This is very crucial. He becomes Euergetes, Ptolemy Euergetes, which is called benefactor. All right? As a compliment for his having thus, after many years, restored their captive gods. Okay? So he brings the treasures and the gods back to Egypt. All right? Why is he called Euergetes, the benefactor? And why is this significant? All right? So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land. So he went back to his own land, having defeated the king of the north. All right? And he becomes the benefactor. He becomes the benefactor because he brings in all the treasures. All right? All right. And what does he become the benefactor of? Right. The king of the south does come into the dominion of the king of the north and return to his own land, as the prophet had foretold. And he also continued many more years than the king of the north. For Seleucus Callinicus, right, the one he captured was the son of Laodice, right? He died in exile. Very important. He died in exile of a fall from his horse. And Ptolemy Euergetes, after he returned back, he survived him for 4 or 5 years. Afterwards, he died. But he did not die of a natural cause. He died murdered by his own son. Right? He was murdered by his own son. Okay. So he was called the benefactor. All right? What's the big deal about benefactor? He brought all those treasures and he enriched the Library of Alexandria. Have you heard of the Library of Alexandria? They had 700,000 ancient scrolls in that library. From Babylon. Yeah, from Babylon. And these had all the knowledge of Babylon, and he took it down to Egypt, to the Alexandrian library, and he became the benefactor of the library of Alexandria. Okay? Now, you think this is not important? This is very important. Yeah, well, that's the canon of Ptolemy also was there. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, we have to do a little summary here, okay? Okay. All right. Oh, we have to do our summary here. Okay. So all right. Ptolemy, we're doing Daniel 11. We're doing Daniel 11 verses, we're up to verse what, 7 or 8? 7, 8, right? Okay, our summary here. Ptolemy is the king of the south in Egypt, all right? I've got Egypt here. Ptolemy is the king of the south. To become the king of the north, Seleucus has to conquer Antigonus of the east, the successors of Cassander in the west, and finally Lysimachus of the north, right? Seleucus has to conquer 3 kingdoms to become the king of the north, all right? And he did that in 281 BC. He finally becomes the king of the north in 281 BC. And that is in verse 4 and 5. Okay, 4 and 5. All right? Okay. We have to make sure you understand this summary, all right? In the first Syrian War, the king of the south defeats the king of the north, all right? That's just from history. That's not from the Bible. The Bible just says after many years, all right? But history says that in the first Syrian War, the king of the south defeats the king of the north, all right? In the second Syrian War, it ended in a peace treaty in 253 BC, remember? That's Berenice, the Berenice peace treaty. And that's verse 6a. The symbol of the peace treaty was killed. Berenice was killed. That's verse 6b. All right? The third Syrian War starts in 246 BC. The king of the south takes revenge on the king of the north without resistance all the way into his fortress. That's verse 7. Right? So that's from verse 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right? The king of the south takes back to Egypt booty and treasures and becomes the benefactor of the Alexandria library. That's verse 8, right? Okay. King of the north dies in exile. The king of the south dies in an unnatural death a few years later. And that's verse 9. Okay? All right. Now, when we put this like this, then you see, that's a very, very familiar story of France. Okay? That's very familiar. Didn't we study this in the French Revolution? Wow. So from 281 to 246, I told you, remember 281 here? The king of the north, he becomes the king of the north by plucking out 3 nations? Oh, doesn't that sound familiar? All right. And then what happens in 246? The king of the south takes revenge on the king of the north in 246. Okay, how many years is that? How many years is that? 35 years. That's 35 years, okay? So when the time that he becomes the king of the north by plucking out 3 countries to the time that the king of the south takes revenge on the king of the north is 35 years. All right? Okay, your minds have to start churning. Okay, how does this fit into prophecy? Okay? All right. We go to Daniel and Revelation. Go that way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. All right? And the time of the end, there will be 3 time prophecies that ends at the time of the end. One of them is called the 1,290 days. The 1290 ends at the time of the end. And what happens? All right? I don't have to go into the details, but just remember, that's the 1290 ends at the time of the end. All right? Okay. What is another time of prophecy that ends at the time of the end? 1260. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has place prepared of God, and they should feed her 1,260 days. So the 1290 and the 1260 ends at 1290. Obviously, we know that the 7 times ends at the time of the end also. But what's important here is the 1290 and the 1260. And what is another, how do you describe the 1260 in other terminologies? 3.5 times. Time, times, and a half time. 3.5 times. All right? It's also called, in Revelation 11, 42 months. All right? So the 1260 is also called 3.5 times. All right? Do you see that? Okay. All right? And it ends at the time of the end. Okay. So now we'll try to put this into, making it, I'm trying to lead you somewhere, but I have to do it, with step by step. All right. 508. What happened in 508? Clovis gives up his pagan religion and becomes a Catholic. All right? And because of that, he starts giving his army to the papacy, so that the papacy can have an army, because the papacy cannot fight a war. You have to have the army given by a dragon power, right? By a kingdom, right? So Clovis gives up his army to the papacy. And in so doing, the 10 kingdoms of Europe becomes Catholic. The Byzantine Empire emperor is called Justinian at that time. And what did the Justinian do? Because there was these Vandals and Visigoths and Ostrogoths continuing to harass and attack them. Well, how did he pluck them out first? He first had to appoint a corrector of heretic. Right, because these barbarian countries, they were heretics, right? They were Arians. So for us to actually pluck them out, we have to call them a heretic, right? And who is given the title of the corrector of heretic? The papacy. It's Pope John II. So Pope John II becomes the corrector of heretics and the universal bishop. And because of that, now we can go and pluck out these three countries, right, who are Arians, right? So we can pluck the 538, right? So now you can pluck out 538. You see that? What happens then? He becomes the universal, he now can reign supreme, right? Until 1798. When? Right. When France delivers the deadly wound to the papacy. All right? And France, what was the king, the emperor was? Napoleon. Right? Took down the Pope. What was his name again? Pope Pius the Seventh or something like that. I can't remember now. Pope Pius the Seventh. Anyway. Now when you see this, this is the 1290. 508 to 1798. This is the 1290. All right? And this is the 30 years that the papacy has time to set up. So to set up, he takes 30 years to set up, right? And then to reign supremely, it's 1260 years. right? Okay, until a deadly wound is given to him. Who gives him the deadly wound? General Berthier. And who was France? It used to be his firstborn of the Catholic Church. The firstborn of the Catholic Church betrayed the Catholic Church and gave him the deadly wound. All right? Right. Because he's the king of the South now, he became atheist and he became a king of the South. All right? So when you see this, do you see that the papacy has used the life of Christ, the pattern of Christ? Because Jesus, after he was born, it took him 30 years for him to start his ministry. And how long did his ministry last? 3.5 years, until he was betrayed by his own disciple. And then he was given the deadly wound and he was hung on the cross. But did he eventually get resurrected? What about the papacy? After the papacy received the deadly wound, did the papacy eventually get resurrected? The wound is healed, right? Yeah. So that's the pattern of Christ. You see the pattern of Christ right there. The papacy, what? Is a copycat of Christ, right? That's 30 years followed by the 3.5. Now this 3.5 is right here. 538 to 1798. That's 3.5 centuries, right? 300, right? 1260, 1,260 years, right? 3.5 prophetic years to 1,260 years. Okay, all right. Okay. So now you see this and compare this to the Diadochi Wars. Alexander, General Seleucus, he had to conquer 3 of his rivals, right? He had to conquer 3 kingdoms to become the king of the north. So he plucked out 3 countries. What year was that? 281. All right? And then Ptolemy Euergetes, right? Ptolemy Euergetes conquered. He's the king of the south. He conquered the king of the north. This is the king of the south, conquered the king of the north. All right? Then he goes back. He goes back to his own country, and yeah, he was murdered by his own son. This guy fell off a horse. All right? He died in exile. He died in exile also. Right? And how did he die? It was not a natural death. He died of gastric cancer with an ulcer at the age of 51. It was certainly unnatural. They all died of unnatural. Now, do you see this? It completely fits the story, right? So you see that this line completely follows the line of the French Revolution, and Daniel 11 just described what happened in the French Revolution by the story of the generals of Alexander. All right? Okay. All right. But you say, wait a minute. Where's the treaty? Where's the peace treaty?
Yeah, where's that?
Where's this peace treaty? Okay, so we have to say, okay, so he conquers the king of the south. The peace treaty happens before here, right? It has to happen somewhere here. Right? It happens in 253. All right. So where's this peace treaty? Okay. Oh, this is 3.5 prophetic years. This is 3.5 decades. Right. So you see how that fits? 35 years. Right? You see that? Yeah. This fits perfectly, just like a key. Right? Yeah, where's the peace treaty? The peace treaty happened here. So there must be a peace treaty here. Before 1798, there must have been some sort of peace treaty. Okay? And in that peace treaties, the king of the north has got to kill. Okay, all right, we got to go. We find this out. There's a Treaty of Tolentino. Treaty of Tolentino. For some reason, I know Tolentino. It's you. Right? Yeah. The Treaty of Tolentino.
So our last names came from all the way there, huh?
Right. February, because I remember, hey, Tolentino, wait a minute, why do I know this name? It turns out, oh, okay, it's Ray. All right. February 19, 1797. Okay, this is what happened. Right, obviously, this happened before 1798, 1797, right? Alexander. Now, he becomes, Napoleon becomes powerful. He suddenly is able to conquer Sardinia, which is northern Rome, northern Italy, which has now came in alliance with Austria. And you know what? France defeated them. Wow. He defeated them. So now he becomes powerful. So this is the kingdom of Sardinia. This is Switzerland, Austria up here. Basically now Napoleon basically defeated them. So now he's going to go down to Italy right here. And here is the Papal States. Now this is Rome, and there's several states here that is controlled by the papacy. It's called the Papal States. So he invades the Papal States. So the problem is that they're very weak. So what Napoleon does, he says, okay, I'm going to give you a treaty. Okay, this treaty is, all right, this treaty, I'm going to summarize it in my own words. I'm going to, if you break this treaty, you know what, you're going to have to pay like millions and millions of money.
15 million.
Yeah, 50 million livre. And you also have to give up 100 pieces of your treasures, art treasures. Art treasures? Yeah, from all the Papal States, all right? All right? And the art treasures is something very famous, you know. These are the art treasures. Do you remember this? Remember seeing this at the Vatican Museum? I actually took a picture right in front of this, and I said, Jill, we got to take a picture right in front of it. This is called the Laocoon. I didn't know why it was so famous, because everybody was taking a picture in front of this. It turns out this was one of the art treasures that Napoleon took back to the Louvre. No, he took it back to the Louvre, okay? He took 100 pieces of art treasures back to the Louvre, and Napoleon became the benefactor of the Museum of Louvre in Paris. The benefactor of the museum in Paris? Can you imagine that? Is that a coincidence? There's no coincidences in the Bible. There's no coincidence in the Bible. All these treasures, there's like 100 very, very important treasures that the Vatican owned. They took it back, all right? Now, how did they take it back? You know, because the papacy basically broke the treaty, right? Say, here's the treaty. If you break it, I'm going to take your treasures, all right? I'm not going to invade you, but if you break the treaty, I'm going to be able to invade you, and I'm going to be able to take your treasures. All right? Okay. So this is called the Laocoon, very famous. The Laocoon, this is called, what was this? Raphael's Transfiguration. Raphael's Transfiguration. This is the Dying Gaul. This is Apollo Belvedere, and I can't remember what it is the name. Yeah, yeah, but it is these, yeah. basically Napoleon was able to take it back when the papacy broke the treaty. Now, when did the papacy break the treaty?
1798.
On December 28, 1797, a small band of revolutionists of Rome and other parts of Italy, along with some Frenchmen, among them was General Duphot. All right, this is General Duphot, who was attached to the French embassy at Rome, having dined together in the palace of the French Academy of Arts. Basically, this becomes the palace for the French in Rome. And the ambassador over there was the brother of Napoleon Bonaparte. It's Joseph Bonaparte. So Joseph Bonaparte becomes the ambassador in Rome. All right? And they had a party at his place, and these guys became drunk. So they decided to go out in the streets and have a celebration of a French Republican Jacobin festival. And they decided, oh, okay, you know, what are they at that time? They were communists, right? And so what happened? The papal troops shot at them and killed General Duphot. All right, General Duphot was killed, right? All right, okay, that's the basic story of what happened. And this is the brother of Napoleon, right? His name is Joseph Bonaparte. So the French were doing their revelry down there. They wanted to celebrate a certain Republican festival, and the papacy, you know, the people of Rome did not like it. You know, this is French. You know, they're atheists. What are they doing their French atheistic celebration in our country, this Catholic country? So they had Duphot was killed. All right. The occasion, however, was too favorable to be neglected by the Directory. The Directory is like kind of like the Parliament in France, who had been apparently watching the errors of the papal administration to find a plea for seizing the remaining treasures of the ancient metropolis. Now, okay, you broke the treaty, all right? Now we're going to take your treasures. So they took the treasures and took it back to Rome, all right? I mean, to Paris. To Paris. They took a lot of the treasures and took it to Paris. And they said that the France, it was for the punishment. So now we can attack you. We can take your treasures. We can take your money, because we are just taking revenge for the murder of Duphot and Basseville. Okay, Duphot is the general. Basseville was another French ambassador who decided he wanted to insult the papacy. So they had him killed too. So now the French says, can you look at this? It's the brother that decided to come and take revenge. Do you see that? It's the brother. You know, is that a coincidence? It just fits too perfectly. All right? This is the brother of the ambassador that decides that he now has a pretext to come in and take all the treasures back to France.
So
all right?
Berthier is the brother of...
No, Napoleon. All right? Napoleon sends his general, right? But it's basically Napoleon, right? Yeah, because Napoleon is the brother of Joseph, and Joseph was the one that made a, kind of like festivity down there, and then Duphot was killed because of it. But now the brother decides that, okay, I'm going to have to take revenge on you guys down there, and so he comes and takes all the treasures, and he takes the papacy. Now, how did he take the papacy?
The brother of Joseph, right?
Right. This is the brother of Joseph, which is Napoleon. Napoleon sends his general. That's Berthier. That's Berthier. So Berthier goes. How does Berthier enter Rome? Now it says, was there any resistance? No resistance. Where did he eventually enter into? he went all the way into the Sistine Chapel. Do you know where the Sistine Chapel is? Right in the middle of the Vatican, right into the fortress of the King of the North, right? Without any resistance. He just went in, walked in there, he served the papers to the papacy in the Sistine Chapel without any resistance. Is that a coincidence? Amazing. All right, so the summary. So that's the Diadochi Wars. That eventually the wars of the generals. It became two generals, north and south, Ptolemy and Seleucus, right? That's it. Eventually, he becomes the king of the north. Seleucus becomes the king of the north in 281. All right? We find that in verse 4 and 5. Okay? And then the first Syrian War is when the king of the south actually wins. But you know, when did that happen? All right? We're going to put a line up there, the French Revolution, and we're going to find out when that happened. All right? And then this is Berenice. Right? The peace treaty. And then that's verse 6a. And the death of Berenice, that's verse 6b. All right? And then this is Ptolemy, right? The third war. This is the first, second. This is the third war. He comes and takes revenge. All right? That's 246. Okay? And that's verse 7 to 9. All right? This is from Daniel 11. All right? Now we put that on the top of the, they put this line with the line of, now we're doing line upon line, okay? This is the only way to study. There's only one way of studying the Bible is line upon line. When it comes to prophecy, obviously. 538. What happens at 538? The king of the north, he becomes the king of the north because he also have plucked out 3 countries, right? Just like here, right? 538. He plucks up, he reigns supreme until 1798 here. But at 1793, what happened in 1793? The king of the south was atheism. Who becomes an atheistic country and who's the leader that decides to kill the Robespierre decides to abolish the Church of Catholic Church in France, right? And that happened in 1793. So the king of the south prevails against the king of the north, right? And that's true. The king of the south prevailed against the king of the north because Robespierre abolished the Catholic Church in 1793, correct? Right, and beheaded King Louis, right? The Treaty of Tolentino, 1797, that's the Berenice Treaty, right? Okay, and then General Duphot was killed. That is verse 6a. That's the pretext. The pretext for the king of the south now coming into the fortress of the king of the north without any resistance. And what happened to the king of the north? He was exiled and he died in exile. And what happened to the king of the south? He also died in exile of an unnatural death in St. Helena. Right. Wow. You know, I'm actually pretty, I was, you know, not only just amazed that how this actually was opened up and this understanding fit so perfect with the French Revolution, and that nobody had ever deciphered this until just about 2 months ago. So what we're studying here is right at the forefront of prophecy. Nobody, I'm telling you, in this world right now, except just for a few ministries, and there's probably less than 1,000 people know this right now, in this whole world. I mean, you know, if you don't understand the magnanimity, you know, how how important this is. This is really important because we haven't gotten there. We haven't continued, because the next few verses is going to tell what's going to happen to America. All right, this is pretty amazing. Okay, let's see. Where are we on our time? Okay, we're okay.
So is verses 4 through 9, is the current SDA understanding of that, is that pretty similar? Because this is mostly history.
There is nobody.
There's no understanding.
If you were to go to the spiritual Israel right now and ask any of the pastors there, can you please explain to me Daniel 11? First of all, they have no clue as to what it actually means, let alone understand the prophetic implication of what is happening now. Nobody can even actually connect it with the French Revolution. This understanding, and you see this is completely what we call airtight. It is lock and key, There's no, it fits like a glove. There's no way this is wrong. I'm telling you, Ray, there is no way it's wrong.
It's neglected because it's already there. No, because it's in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, but nobody can put it together. Nobody. The link is not. The reason why is because nobody studies line upon line. And the way to study line upon line has been called a heresy. Because now the way you study is called exegesis and hermeneutics. Hermeneutics and exegesis is the way the BRI tells you how we study the Bible. Because the BRI right now tells you, okay, this is the interpretation of Daniel 11. And the people go, okay, we don't understand it, but nobody understands it anyway, so it can't be important.
Even French Revolution didn't really...
This is, unfortunately, the status of what is happening in spiritual Israel. It is because nobody knows how to study the way William Miller's method of studying, which is endorsed by Ellen White. Ellen White says this is how you study. The way you study like this, the key is going to be unlocked unto you. All these prophecies are going to be unlocked unto you if you study this method. All right? This is so amazing.
Because the history from verse 4 and on, that's where you've written in Daniel.
Right.
But when you want to connect the lines, now that's a whole different story.
To connect the line, you put the French Revolution with this. Nobody has ever done it, and when you put it together, in this whole world, there's only a few people that know this.
So it is true, it's in Daniel Revelation, but the lines,
That's
the key.
The key.
They
That's
don't
the
know
link.
what the reform line is.
Because they really basically neglect the information that's already there.
Yeah.
It's when you go on, when I studied denominational history, we go on Daniel and Revelation.
Absolutely.
But you don't go on, that's what you said, the line, you don't, it's just basically part of history.
It's history. When you just history,
It doesn't
Not
put it
applicable
on.
to what does it mean?
But you have to apply the lines, and that's how you get
the only way to study is line upon line, precept upon precept. And this method is now called heresy. Because the only way you can study is by hermeneutics and exegesis.
And that's when you say on Seventh-day Adventists, we're blessed, but we are cursed because we are blessed with the information, but we neglect it.
We completely neglect it.
Because they didn't consider witnesses.
Right. This is amazing. This has only been deciphered within the last 2 months. This has only been deciphered. Okay. All right. This is 3.5, right? This is 3.5. 3.5 prophetic years, which is 1260. And this is 3.5 decades from here to here, right? You see that? That's how it connects, right? To understand this, you first have to know 1290. You have to know 1260. Well, 1260 they know, but you can't put 1290. How can you know 1290? You don't even know the daily. How are you gonna, you have a complete misunderstanding of the daily sanctuary, the daily sacrifice being taken away. If you don't know the daily being taken away is paganism, and you call it Christ's ministration in the temple in heaven is being taken away by the papacy, you will never get this. This will never be understood by anybody who teaches that the daily is Christ's ministration in heaven. That's complete 180 degrees away from being able to decipher this.
Because you still have 538.
Yeah, you cannot get 538. You cannot get, you know.
No, once
you don't know 508, you cannot get 538.
then you're lost.
You're completely lost. You cannot find it because the understanding, and it is completely the understanding which is taught in the Sabbath schools. In the Sabbath schools, that daily sacrifice is Christ's ministration in heaven, taken away by the papacy. When you have that understanding being taught in the Sabbath schools, you will never be able to decipher this.
You lose the top line.
Completely.
So you just throw it away because you cannot.
Yeah.
Because basically
Lose
it's
a line.
1,290. I never heard it. We read it,
Mhm.
so because we put it away.
You cannot understand this
But
if
it's
you don't.
basically just, it's a continuation.
Yeah.
You just neglect the 30 years.
And it fits like a glove. It cannot be error. Cannot be error. So what we have been taught for the 50 years that I've been a Seventh-day Adventist have been error.
It's not much error. We just throw away some details. Because we still, the 538 and 1798 is still there.
Right.
So we just...
But when you call paganism Christ's heavenly ministration, that is error. When you actually call paganism Christ's heavenly ministration, that is error. It is not that is right. Yeah, that is error. You cannot call paganism. If this is the way you understand this, is only if you have. That is why only the wise will understand 1290 and 1335. Only the wise. That's Daniel 12. All right. All right. You know, this is very, you know, we're not claiming that we're the wise virgins right now. No, absolutely not. But we want to be. And that's why we have to have the correct understanding. And when you have the correct understanding, you are going to be unlocking. You're going to be unlocking the history. And if you're unlocking this and you see this, this cannot be error. It is 100% airtight. All right. Okay. All right. That's the time of the end. Okay. One more summary, just to put this into perspective right here. We did this 538, time of the end. Okay, this is verse 40a. This is verse 40b, right? Remember, we did this already. Okay, verse 40. This is our understanding in the past. Even this, spiritual Israel rejects. Spiritual Israel rejects this. All right, but it doesn't matter because we have to. If you start rejecting even from the beginning, how are you gonna get to the end? Oh boy, I have no clue. All right, but okay. This is the Sunday law is verse 41. All right. So now we put in verse 1 and 2. We get the 4 presidents. We can actually, before he was elected, it was predicted that he was going to come based on prophecy. And it's perfect. It's perfect. Verse 1 and 2, verse 14 and 12. From Daniel, we'll be able to decipher this. And now, verse 4 and 5, we put in the Diadochi Wars. We put in the Second Syrian War. We put in the Treaty of Tolentino there. You know, we had no clue of what that meant. Now we put in the death of Berenice. And the death of Duphot. We put that all in there. All right? That's verse, and now verse 7 and 9. That's the third Syrian War. Okay? It gets all put in there. Okay? And now it's starting to fit. Now the scary part is what's going to happen next week. Because we're going to fill in more of what's going to happen in this timeline. Because what happens in the 4th and the 5th Syrian War is going to happen in this timeline right here. It's going to fit in right here. The Battle of Raphia and the Battle of Panium. That's the 4th and the 5th Syrian War. So, you know, I'm just telling you, we have to be humbled and have to be awed by the providence of why we're actually here right now. You know, you didn't come here by accident, you know. You didn't come here just because, well, it was a convenient thing to do, you know. God led you to be here for us to study like this, and the key has just been unlocked. If only we're able to see it, you know, and understand that for so many years, you know, what all these jewels have been brushed under no, not the rug, for the dirt. That's the prophecy of William Miller when he saw his first vision. He saw the dirt being brushed, covering all the jewels. And then when these jewels are starting to be opened up and starting to be, it's going to shine 10 times brighter. Right? Do you realize that you're living in that time right now? Because these jewels here, you know, you can count how many people in this world right now knows. These are very tiny jewels, and it's shining bright that nobody can actually realize, you know, that these jewels are being, right at this moment, being revealed, right? William Miller's jewels. These are the Ezekiel's.
When you go down to verse 40 to 45 and you look at Uriah Smith's, he goes into talking about...
Yeah, then he gets wrong.
Turkey, Ottoman, and the glorious land, which he says is Palestine.
Yeah, so that's because that's when Uriah Smith starts to go, when he goes into futurism, then he starts going wrong. But Ellen White endorses the part when he's going into prophecy. When he's doing history, we are to use him when he uses Daniel and Revelation as a reference for us to study
verse 40 to 45
history.
Is now.
Yeah.
So it's not applicable.
He starts going wrong when he goes to verse 38, 38 and 39. Okay. We did that 3 years ago. All right. Okay. Wow. You know, that is the more sure word of prophecy. Okay.
So we're Italian.
Maybe this is the significance of
Tolentino is
Almighty.
Italian.